If we can put our thumbs up and just get a few things lined up, chances are no one has ever made those same things line up before.
Welcome to Magicians Talking Magic. My name is Ryan Joyce.
And my name is Grimazing. Welcome to yet another episode of Magicians Talking Magic, Part 3 of Creativity. And that opening quote comes from Damian Kulash, lead singer of OK Go, when talking about how they come up with their unique and wonderful ideas for their music videos at TEDx. The talk is about how they start with a basic concept or plan, like can we make a dance video on treadmills or do a music video floating in zero gravity? And then they just play in that sandbox and fill that sandbox up with ideas, tapping in ideas they didn't even know they would discover. And if you've been following along with our creativity episodes, we hope you've been filling up your sandbox with old and new ideas. The link for that TED Talk, by the way, is in the description below. And we're going to be diving into this concept of going from sandbox to final concept. But first, as we do on Magicians Talking Magic, Joyce, the news.
Let's get to some latest news in the magic industry. Don't forget to join our Discord. And if it's you, we've got a contest going on, by the way. You can get special playing cards just by joining our Discord. And that is going to be announced at our upcoming book club episode, which records tomorrow. We're going to be releasing that episode very soon. For the last month, we've been reading Paul Harris's Art of Astonishment, Volume 1. There's still time if you want to crank out some pages in that incredible book. We can join you in our recording that we're going to be doing that this week with some fellow members of our Discord channel. So don't forget to join Discord. So many reasons to do so, including those free playing cards. Don't forget also, Cam has an incredible event coming up, Cam Jam. We're announcing the details. Oh, this is, I believe, the first time we're announcing the official details on these. Cam Jam is going to be a really unique look into the history of some really prominent Canadian magicians, including Doug Henning and Di Vernon. We're joined this Cam Jam with a guy named Chip Romero. He's a prominent magician. I've known him from the cruise industry. He's also a collector of magic, and he has the world's largest Doug Henning collection. So you want to tune in for that. This is, of course, free to everybody. We already have, I think, over 80 people registered at this point. And just a little heads up, it's going to be over our normal time, which is normally an hour. This is definitely going to exceed an hour and a half. So tune in. The date is the second Wednesday. I don't even know what that is off the top of my head, Grimazing. The 14th, that's what it is. 14th.
I feel like that's next week's. Yeah, it's basically next Wednesday. It's next, if you're listening to this on Wednesday when the podcast comes out, it's next week. And our book club is happening tomorrow night too. So everything's happening so fast. I think this might be one of the best Cam Jams. I know the Steve Valentine one, I nerded out so hard, and I think all magicians did. And this sounds like another deep magic geek out.
Yeah, so much feedback from that Steve Valentine Cam Jam. It was really, really a remarkable night. My gosh, we could have gone for hours. And I figure this one, like Greg has said, you expect 2 hours on this for sure. He got a sneak peek, and he got even to see behind the scenes look at some of the illusions and stuff that we won't get to see at Cam Jam, because there's going to be, obviously we won't be able to show all of the secrets, but he was talking about Chip Romero owns the Metamorphosis trunk from Jonathan and Charlotte Pendragon, the one that we've all seen. So, oh my gosh, I wish I could see that with my own eyes. What a brilliant history of our art form. Wow. So who knows what you'll see on this Cam Jam? So who knows what you will see? So join cammagic.org/events, and you can register there for free.
We're also curious to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your thoughts on virtual magic shows. And Joyce, you have put together a virtual show survey for all our listeners. That link is in the description below. But what's our key takeaway? What do we want to do with the survey?
Yeah, so the survey results, we're going to publish these in our own podcast, of course, upcoming episode, and in Vanish magazine. And so the questions were super quick. It took me about 30 some odd seconds to do the survey, and it's essentially just getting a good big picture view of what our folks in our industry think about virtual shows for the future, what they have, been doing virtual shows in their own existence. Maybe they've been doing a handful of shows, maybe they're doing a ton. This survey is a kind of a well-rounded look at the whole virtual space for magicians, and already have over a dozen entries at this point. So you'll find the link in the description. So much involvement because we want to sort of share those. I feel like that insight will help share a good glimpse to every magician. I think there's some good lessons to learn there. So
it'll be a neat global perspective at virtual magic shows, how everyone's handling them and dealing with them. I'll tell you, actually, just yesterday, I'm part of Trade Show Magicians group on Facebook, and Danny Orleans posted a little thing. Just a quick question. How many of your shows are in person and how many of your shows are virtual? And you quickly get a sense of politics and geography. Most American magicians, depending on where they're located, some were like 100% in person. What? And some were saying 50-50. A lot of people are saying they've never had more in-person bookings in their life than right now, which is to us bonkers because in Ontario, Canada, we just went into lockdown again. And I know for me, everything is 100% virtual for the time being. And talking virtual magic, Joyce and I have been working. We've actually been working on a special show together that's been in development for well over 2 years now. You would know what we're talking about if you've listened way back to the Oh Wow Magic episodes. But we are transitioning this into a virtual experience, and we're currently working that behind the scenes, and that will be coming out in most likely the next handful of months. So stay tuned for that because we'll be applying everything that we talk about here on the podcast in that show, and we're so.
Can I share just one story on that though? Because I like save you from going back to the episode. Either I do encourage you to go back and listen to those episodes. But we presented the show live in person when we could do live shows, and the setting for this was like a bar, and everyone was, having a great time. It was close quarters, like 80 people or so packed into, or maybe 50 people packed into a small space, and it was on fire. And both of us backstage were freaking out because we'd never done this before. We had no idea what was going to get. It was a slight little mishaps connecting to the TVs in the pub, and there's a big stress about this whole thing. And when it was over, there was a couple of people that came backstage and said that was the best thing about the whole Oh Wow festival. Some prominent names in the magic industry, and I tell you, it just made both of our day. So we're going to bring elements of that to the virtual setting. So we sure hope when that comes out, we'll see you in the virtual audience. Also, just wanted one quick thing. Cam creators, make sure to check out cammagic.org/creators. If you have an original idea, which is what these episodes, the last two, have all been about, make sure to visit that page, cammagic.org/creators, because there's a partnership with Murphy's Magic and Canadian Association of Magicians where you earn industry standard rates on your original idea if you're chosen among those who enter. And it could be a real great opportunity for magicians who find an abundance of creativity is certainly something within their grasp. So make sure to check that out. I didn't want to forget. And one quick little buzz. We spoke to Paul Romhany about update of Vanish magazine. So here's a sneak peek on what you can expect for this month's Vanish magazine. Would you mind giving us a sneak peek at what we can expect in the April edition of Vanish magazine?
I do mind. Okay, well, we're going to head over to Spain for the cover for the April edition. Jesus Hassan from Spain, and actually it's a fascinating story. Hal Myers has put this together. Hal's known Jesus for, I think over 40 years, and many people wouldn't even know the name, but once you read the story, you go, wow, where's this guy been? Well, he's been everywhere. So it's a really terrific story about Jesus, and he has his own theater in Barcelona, which I never knew because I've been to Barcelona many times, and I wish I'd known. I'd love to have met him. So we've got a great story about him and about his theater, about his awards for Monte Carlo. He also won the most prestigious National Culture Prize in 2016 from the government of Catalonia. So really, a really well-respected magician from Spain that probably I would think most magicians may not know, so we've got a really, it's the first time that he's been on a cover of something like this. So it's great. We also have a really good story. Our other cover is on Laura London. And Laura has a great story. Many people know Laura's work. What I found fascinating was, because it ties in with something that we've been doing in Vanish, is the diversity. And I didn't know that Laura, and it's in the article here, at the age of 6, she was diagnosed with ADHD, and which is great because we live with that every day ourselves here, with my son. And so it's great to see. I always love success stories and people who overcome challenges, and so this is really an inspirational story for me and my family. So Laura London is a fantastic performer. We also have some really, actually, I do the product highlights, so some really great product highlights inscribed, which is a prediction, like an amazing prediction routine that's just come on the market. So we've got a product highlight of that. We have Danny Wise's latest venture, which is, again, one of the best effects for walkabout, stage, or even online. The online performance is incredible. And venture is any card called out ending up inside a luggage tag, or any signed card. It's the world's easiest card to impossible location. It's terrific. We also have a wonderful article by Peter Pax on digital media marketing for your brand. So, very relevant today. We go to the UK, where we have Chris Cross, who talks about his journey for collecting magic. He's one of the biggest collections now of magic props, but he shares his story about finding a lot of Paul Daniels magic from his TV shows in an old barn, which is fascinating. And we have some great photos there with Chris. And we have Colin Underwood shares the 5 Ps, which is practice, panic, perseverance, perform, then practice again. It's a great article there. Lots of sort of inspirational articles. One of my favorite magicians, kids magicians or family magicians, Christopher T. Magician. We've had him now for a couple of months with his new series, and he's got another great routine that he teaches called One Card at Any Page. Louis Fox with the most incredible Copintro routine with a coin. Now, normally these tricks sell for, I don't know, hundreds of dollars, but Louis has taken this, and he said growing up in magic, because I spoke to him about this and he showed me, it's incredible. Growing up in magic, he would look at these tricks that he couldn't afford, and so he would come up with methods that were super simple, but were exactly the same effect. And so this is one that he came up with. Aaron Matthews, who's a new contributor as well. Aaron's really clever, and he's got a trick called Zoomvelope, which is a envelope prediction routine that you can do online, or that he's been using for virtual shows. So it's a really great magic that you can get in here too. Other articles include Scrib in the World by Felicity Fields. We have another review, which is the latest masterclass, another product highlight by Juan Tamarez. And Nick Lewin takes us on his article, The Masterful Magic of Fred Caps. Now, Nick just recently did a whole sort of workshop on Fred Caps with guests, and he took all that and he put it into an article. So a real good insight into the incredible, Fred Caps. And also we have a great article by Ben Robinson on Denny Haney, and a new book called Collected Wisdom by Jason Alexander. Really great book. And so again, great photos as well to go with that. So it's a really jam-packed issue. Obviously the reviews, we review quite a lot of products. Some you may recognize. There's one called the Ultimate Virtual Opener. Have you heard of that one, Ryan?
Yeah, I know the guy that came up with it. He always keeps that close by his computer in case he has an opportunity.
I'll tell you, I started doing it. What a great routine, Ryan.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's fast. It's fast.
Yeah, but what I like about it is, and this was brought up recently on I think in John Allen brought this up. John was saying, what do people do to condition their audience on virtual shows? And I quickly responded on Facebook and said, you've got to get this, because this is the perfect thing. So you've combined a fun way to condition or to teach people etiquette, or Zoom etiquette, if you like, and with a magic trick with a really killer ending, great ending. So you've just made it really fun. So you're doing, not only are you up front of the show, are you showing them with the chat and mute and all that, but you're also, and participants, but you're also at the end doing a really cool trick. So you've really nailed that one.
Oh, I appreciate it. I foresee doing it in a stand-up show too.
Oh
Outside
yeah,
of this,
sorry, yeah, that's
I think it'll be funny to have like
well, I
references
was
to
thinking too.
Zoom.
Well, I totally agree. And in fact, I wrote a funny comment the other day. Well, I thought it was funny. No one else did. But I said, when we get back to live shows, I'm going to ask the entire audience to mute themselves. And if you have, and if you want to heckle me, please raise your hand.
That's gold.
Anything like that, because people are going to be so used to the technology and the terms, so we can really.
It'll bring them on your side. It's a sort of some way to be all together in the same environment and understand something together.
Well, there's another trick that we review that's just come out called Social Print by Twister Magic, and it's all about Facebook and social media, but and it's great. You can do it online, but it's designed to stand-up piece of magic with cards and things and celebrities. But it's all about Facebook, and it's one gag after the other. He takes out a rubber band and he puts it around a hanky, and instead of the silk being a silk, it's he asks the audience, "Do you know what this is?" And the silk is designed to look like a LED screen. And the audience might say, well, it's a hanky. He goes, no, it's not a hanky. It's the latest technology. It's the flattest LED screen, And he takes out a rubber band and wraps it around the hanky. And he says, do you know what this is? And they'll say, well, it's a rubber band. He goes, no, this is bandwidth. So and it's
clever.
It's great. It's just one line after the other. Bang, bang, bang. It's a great routine. So we review that as well. So another jam-packed edition of Vanish for April, I think.
So much in there for everybody, Paul. I don't know how you do it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Ryan. Have a great month.
So make sure to check out vanishmagic.com and subscribe.
Vanish magazine does an incredible job of keeping the magic community connected and up to date with, I can't believe Paul releases a magazine every month with the latest news, and there's articles submitted from all over the world. So it's not just his perspective, it's everybody's perspective. It's a really valuable resource in the magic world. But today we are talking about creativity. This is our third and final episode in this little mini series, and it's all about connecting the dots, putting it together. In the past two creativity episodes, we've talked about how to capture ideas, how we record them, and even our own personal rules of creativity. So if you've been following for a long time, hopefully you've learned some things about yourself, right? You've explored yourself a little bit more, what you like, what you want to do. And the ideas in steps 1 and 2, the whole point was just to kind of let ideas flow and run wild. It's like the OK Go video that we mentioned at the top. Play in that sandbox, because you're going to uncover ideas you didn't even know existed just yet. And one thing that if no one's seen the OK Go video just yet, Damien mentions that sometimes you don't really think that you've uncovered the idea. You feel like you've found it, like it found you, the idea. That's the relationship that you have with these creative ideas, instead of like, oh, I created this. It's almost like I found this. So, we've been focusing on a specific objective in Magicians Talking Magic because it's very timely, and that's kind of a virtual magic show. That's the case study that we've been riding through all three. But maybe you had something else. Maybe it's like I have to develop my website. Maybe I'm working on a slide deck for a sales team or something like that. Maybe that's your objective, and you've been using these creative episodes for something like that. But we want to kind of dive into the scope of virtual magic show and maybe like putting together a full magic show. We've talked about things like this, but in this creativity episode, we are going to take a deep dive into we have this spread of ideas and tricks. How do we put it all together? But Joyce, you have a first.
Can I just jump in with something? Because I think this is really important, and it is also something we haven't touched on in any of the episodes. And that is you've really got to look outside of the magic industry to get the best sources of creativity. And obviously you're not going to find methods. Well, sure you will. You'll find everything outside of the world of magic, but you're going to have to put them together is the point. And I guess I'll just try to drive it home with this metaphor. And that is you can't drive down the same road for 20 years and expect to see different things. You've got to take alternative routes and look at other scenes to get inspiration. And that's exactly the same point with magic. You've got to look at other, what are your hobbies and interests and the things that make you unique, and what are, dive deep into some of those and figure ways that you can connect the things that you like there with the things that you like about magic. Unfortunately, and fortunately, early on in our intrigue and interest in the art of magic, it's all about absorption. We're just learning and learning and learning. And so you got to do that. You got to understand that's part of the process, of course. And then as you sort of crust, right? And get a firm base of magic and like what ideas are already out there, already existing. You'll start to like dive into like more like focusing in refinement versus idea collection. So when you're in that refinement phase, that's when I encourage you to start like really exploring other interests and applying those to magic, because obviously we've got to learn ideas first. That's the first step. And so once you realize that you're no longer just in the learning and absorption phase, that's when, and you want to like polish a routine that's uniquely yours. That's where we're talking today on this episode, is that sort of refinement and putting it all together.
Yeah, creating that connective tissue and things from kind of all your perspectives. And also when you observe, so where I get my outside creativity, we talked about the OK Go video, like music acts. I love musicians. I mean, specific musicians that can talk about what they're doing in a high level sense. Pro wrestling, I talk about it all the time. Pro wrestling, like Stone Cold Steve Austin always talks about his character and persona, and he always lives by the thing. It's not what you say, but how you say it. There's different things, and you don't have to follow these. But that's where I get all my creativity. I'm always listening to pro wrestling podcasts and on their theory of how they tell the story in the ring and things like that. But it also helps you, because I fell into this trap before when I first started performing. I wanted to get too much of my uniqueness in my show, and I think a lot of my jokes were kind of too deep cut, too deep dive, too personal to me, unrelatable. Didn't make sense. And when you observe big picture things like big music acts or other entertainment things or TV shows or just high level stuff, you start to realize it's highly relatable in multiple different ways. Like a Beatles song, you can relate to it almost whatever feeling or emotion you're having that day, whether you're going through a breakup, maybe something happened at work, maybe just a small, like you're mad at your dog or something, you can relate to that Beatles song. It's highly relatable. But that's kind of what we're diving into, is connecting the dots and the pieces.
Would you establish this as a feeling? This is something that just feels like when you want to refine ideas, or you go down a certain path, is it you're just acknowledging a feeling and sort of going in that direction? Is that the motivator?
I feel like it's it's all gut instinct, and if it feels right, it feels right, and if it's not feeling right, then take a deep look at it, evaluate, and for instance, before this episode, we were discussing this show, the virtual show that we just talked about, and you had a sense that this part wasn't feeling right, so we had an open discussion about it, and I think it makes sense and it's valid. But if you have that feeling, there's no sense of like, I don't think this makes sense, but let's continue steamrolling it through. Yeah, pause for a second and evaluate. And you do have to try these things out. You have to give them a test run to see if it even works and fits in place. When we go back to talking about virtual magic show, I think one hard thing too is coming at like the expectation of it has to be perfect right away. We got to nail it. And that is kind of unobtainable. You have to experience it first to know what might happen and observe everything. And I remember my first virtual show was kind of like probably most of our first magic shows, a showcase of magic tricks. Hey, here's a trick. Hey, let me show you something else. Here's a trick. But as I started to learn the process of virtual and what's possible, and, I had theories in my own mind of like, well, people will think this is camera tricks. People will think this, people will think that. And there's certain things that people don't actually perceive or think during the magic show. And there's certain reasons why they're there and what they're perceiving. So I started to remove tricks and add new tricks in. But as you start to look at this bed of all these tricks, when a trick ends, what props are you left with? Can those props transition into something else that's in your notebook, that you've written down that you really want to express in a magical way? Do you have some props there on the table that creates a natural transition? I remember in the restaurant setting, it took me a long time to get there, but my full set is just one deck of cards with one odd-backed card. And all the tricks, once one ends, it's set up for the next effect perfectly. And I mean, that takes a long time of research to find all those effects and all those magic that's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that we're in setup position for this next effect, and that's perfect. If you start analyzing all the things that you've got, how does it all fit and nest together? The other key thing that I think when I'm putting together a show is thinking about the flow, right? I want to start strong and end equally strong. And I also want to figure out a message. Like, what am I saying? When you're just displaying magic tricks, you don't really have a through line, or why are you presenting the magic? What is the main goal? And I think over time, as I presented the virtual tricks and I started to see what the tricks were about, I came up with my through line and my message. And if you want to know that, you have to book a ticket to my virtual shows.
Yeah, if several good points there. Starting strong, ending strong. The effects that that are going to just bang. Just that and you're confident with. Definitely, don't do something new in an opening, unless they're all new, and then good luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, great points there. This and feel totally in the virtual space. Feel okay doing a shorter show. It's in my opinion, it's way many people's opinion. It's way better to do a shorter show. That's great than a longer, terrible tragedy of magic. So consider taking the
I
pressure
almost
off.
think in any setting, you've told me this too, you are better to be shorter than heavy, which is true. Like I remember at a comedy club, if you were short, like you didn't hit your 5-minute set because you got super nervous, no one was going to hang you out to dry. However, if you went over and someone was flashing you that light, you would get ripped apart. And the same thing in the virtual setting. Virtual is tough. We're all like, magicians, we all have the time, right? We're not performing or experiencing virtual, but for the most case scenario, people have kids at home, their parents, they're working. When it comes to a virtual, they want to do it, but they don't want to invest too much of their time, but they do want to be entertained and experience something different than Netflix. So it's a unique thing, this virtual thing. I think the last thing to be really aware of, and this is important for 2021. Actually, this might not be the last thing because we might have some more talking points, but one more thing to think about is your target audience and who you're actually performing magic to. And I realize my target audience is way more sensitive. A lot of those people might even be dealing with PTSD scenarios. I've had that experience. And because of that, I've removed dangerous magic or magic that touches on certain subjects because I don't want to shine a negative light in that sense. You could consider it cancel culture-esque, I think, but I think it's just being aware and sensitive of 2021 values on a whole, or whatever whoever you're selling to. You know what I mean? So that's my last thought is like, who are you presenting to? And always be aware. The one thing I learned in TV school, keep in mind, whatever you make in TV school, we're airing in the hallways for all the teachers and students and the dean to see. So is it tasteful for that? And that's what I've always kind of had in the back of my head.
Yeah, the two things I wanted to retouch on was great points that you made. The idea of being general appeal. That's super, super important. Like, think of it as a funnel. You've got to hit the largest amount of interest with the widest amount of group right at the beginning, and then you can sort of bring them into your character and uniqueness and such. The other thing I also wanted to button on was the transitions. You're so right. Transitions are the hardest part of the magic show, and they're also I think they're the most fun because it's like a little puzzle. How do you connect the effect I did previous to the effect that I'm doing next? And is there a way to bridge that with script, or is there a way to bridge that with a piece of magic, or is there something else that can be introduced to add a little bit of story and drama? So transitions certainly should be fun, and they should also, again, we've spoken about this I know previously, but they should be relatively short and concise, as well as all your sort of scripting and things, but use those points, those times, to let the audience know a little bit about you. So
actually, talking on transitions, I remember we got to experience live Justin Willman, and he was a master of doing transitions live on stage. He would leave props out kind of on the stool, and I think actually specifically I remember he would do the vanishing bandana trick, and he just naturally ended up with all those props there on the stage before the trick started. And so he asked Siri, like, Siri, can you teach me a magic trick? Sure. What do you have around? And then he would announce the objects, and that was, talk about a mind-blowing lead-in. No one steal that. I think that's his. So
it shows the artistic value of a performer on solely their transitions. So make sure to spend a little bit of time on those transitions. Well, anything else you want to add to this discussion?
I feel like that's it. I know this is a high-level, lofty discussion talking about creativity, but I think the key takeaways are just being conscious of yourself. Don't write something that is beyond you, be aware of who you are. And if you're working on a character or something, from my firsthand experience, calling yourself Grimazing and going through the slow path of level 7 wizard and everything, that is, and I also know from talking to Carissa Hendricks about this and hearing her talk about character, it doesn't happen overnight. Same with Piff the Magic Dragon. It's like a slow build, and it's a slow development of you and understanding you and your personality and how you can inject that into the weird and bizarre character that you might be describing. But it's not something you can just be like, hey, guess what? I'm a magical dinosaur today. Yeah, it's not going to,
Absolutely.
Just be aware of yourself.
Let's do a quick recap of the 3 episodes and make sure to absorb and learn and create ideas and capture ideas. Find software or written forms and ways that you get to that resonate with you to capture and retrieve those ideas in the future. And don't forget to follow the rules.
And I think the biggest takeaway from episode 1 was what I heard from a lot of listeners: start a show book. And this is actually a Di Vernon idea. That's where I got the idea from. Is after each show, each set, whether it's even just a meeting, you're getting together with friends and you just did one trick, right? It's the club meeting. Write down what you did and what you learned and maybe some resource points. We often think we remember that stuff, but we totally don't. So it's good to flip back and know where you're landing. And in episode 2, we were talking...
rules of creativity, and of course you got to break rules, of course, so definitely there's some strategies and processes you can do to take sort of control of that creative process. So and then of course in this episode we want to leave you with some resources so you can learn about some more of these creative things that we've been talking about, including that OK Go TED Talk, which is all the TED Talks are nice and concise, so it's really enjoyable, and they're so creative. They have millions and millions and millions of YouTube views, so go check that out. We'll leave links in the descriptions. Also,
even the way OK Go presents the TED Talk as well is one of the most unique presentations. So even just from an artistic performance standpoint, it's fascinating.
Absolutely. And we'll leave a link for another really great view. I'm going to watch this myself. I haven't seen this. This is 100% on your recommendation. Everything is a remix. And this is a discussion on creativity, and that essentially, as you were saying, we were all taking ideas from other people, basically. And so I'm looking forward to that. I will be diving into that today, and I will also leave you a resource for Edward de Bono, who's kind of the grandfather of creativity. Well, this has been a jam-packed 3-part series and a jam-packed episode today. We want to thank you so much for joining us here on Magicians Talking Magic. My name is Ryan Joyce.
My name's Grimazing.
Shablazim.
Tadoozle.
Meow. Meow.